Mike, we have all been around hockey long enough to remember the days when being a captain of a team was not only an honor, but it had a specific role. The captain of the team was supposed to be the guy who not just led the team, but he was the guy who could go to the referee on the ice and talk about things, etc., etc. Those days are gone. Is being a captain as significant now, in your opinion, as it was?
I think it's more of a no. To coin, yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head in all fronts. But I mean, I'm sure it's still an honor and a privilege. Um, I've tried to watch some of that too on the ice because it usually the referees, even in the old days, if you didn't have a letter, you couldn't be involved in any of those conversations on the ice, and it doesn't even
Right,
seem that
exactly.
doesn't even seem that's the way anymore. It's if you're a good player without a letter that or had one at some point in your career, you're still allowed to be a part of those conversations. So it's different all around. But I think just as we just as we talk about, sometimes they say Canadians, we don't do as well at developing goaltenders anymore, or maybe power forwards. It's hard to find those throwback guys, so to speak. I mean, I was very fortunate. We were loaded with them in LA, like the Mike Richards, but to bang it, you hit the nail on the head. I think it's more that finding that person that can fill all those roles from what an old school captain used to be.
Yep.
Now,
More and more. Go ahead, John.
we're just you talked about your time in LA. Explain to us what it was like because it was transitional. You had two players on your team. You moved the captaincy from Dustin Brown to Anze Kopitar too, and they're moving it from John Tavares to Auston Matthews. What are the politics of it?
There's quite a bit at play. I talked about it this morning. I was doing a show because I thought that was something to come up, and we actually talked about it at the because I don't think Brownie's still over it. We talked about it at the reunion too. Uh, we were filled with. We probably had 10 different guys that have worn a captaincy and could have been a captain on the Kings. And I've said that at that point, that was really good for Dustin Brown, who kind of took over the captaincy prior to Dean arriving, and because he was the best young player and what didn't have a lot of role models around him to teach him what a good captain was. Our transition was strange because it came out of two Stanley Cups, where he was the first American-born player to hoist the cup, and I think it was always something in Daryl's mind, that with Kopitar and Doughty being the young guys that we were kind of the pillars of our youth moving forward, that once he felt they were ready, they were going to transition, and Kopitar was going to be the guy. Even more uncomfortable about it was they're absolutely best friends in the world, which I mean, on and off, like looking after each other. They grew up together, were looking after each other's children. So as much as it was something that I think Kopi wanted, it was a little embarrassing at times because Dustin didn't want to give it up. And it wasn't a, I think this one today, and who knows, it makes it sound like it's more like John might have been a part of the process and wanting and thinking this is time to move on for it. I think this one is more to do with fresh coach, new ideas, new leader. It's his team because he's the best player on the team and the leading scorer. But I think there's a lot of different, it's a completely different scenario than when we made it, other than I hope that for the Leafs' sake that John's on board with it, and whether it comes with an extension at a good price, that's huge.
That might be the key, right? Just as an FYI, the first person quoted in the press release for the Toronto Maple Leafs is John Tavares, who said that Brad Treliving came to him at the end of the season in their exit meetings to discuss how to make the team better, and they mutually agreed that it was time to change the captaincy.
Well, that's awesome. Good for them. I mean, for the good of the team, that's good because it would be very awkward if it was another way. I know when the transition, our press conference, I don't even know if we had one, but I know Brownie wasn't at it. So it's a different idea, but again, it's strange seeing the success we had with that group making the change for completely different reasons. And without getting off, I don't think it's getting off topic because there can be some real contentious. It has a lot to do with the personalities involved too, because Dustin was a very quiet leader, great in the gym, great on the ice. In San Jose, Joe Thornton he's a very vocal, that man, that's a personality and a half. And to make that move and keep him around failed dramatically. So this will be interesting because Johnny's always been, I had Johnny as an under 17, and if the first thing that comes out of your mind when you think of him is true professional, really takes care of himself, does all the little things, all the cliches about being a true pro, but no would ever be. And he faces the media too. Good for him, but he doesn't give any sound bites. It's very vanilla. There's not too. I can't imagine him pulling any Vince Lombardi's out in a dressing room. So it'll be interesting. It's more unique to the personality that right now. Again, I love when you guys ask questions, but it just made me think of like the last captain to hoist the Stanley Cup. I can't imagine Barkov sitting there rhyming off quotes either. So I think it's a different game altogether. I think a lot of times, I know in our case, really, I think the coach becomes the captain.